Imagine waking up tomorrow in a world where fire does not exist. There are no campfires, no candles, no stoves, and no way to create warmth after the sun disappears below the horizon. Every meal must be eaten raw. Every night must be endured in darkness. And every predator roaming nearby knows that humans have no flames to keep them away. For most people today, that world sounds almost impossible to imagine. Fire is so deeply woven into modern life that we rarely stop to think about how often we depend on it. We cook with it, stay warm because of it, and use technologies that ultimately trace their origins back to humanity's ability to control it. Yet there was a time when our ancestors lived without any of those advantages. Long before humans learned how to create and maintain fire, they still managed to survive in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. They raised children, found food, avoided predators, and endured countless nights without the protection of a single flame. At first glance, this seems almost impossible. How could a species with poor claws, weak teeth, and limited physical defenses survive without one of its greatest technological advantages? After all, fire does much more than provide warmth. It extends the day beyond sunset, scares away many dangerous animals, makes food easier to digest, and creates a gathering place where communities can share knowledge. Without fire, ancient humans lacked all of those benefits. When the sun went down, darkness arrived completely. When temperatures dropped, there was no reliable source of heat. When food was found, it had to be eaten exactly as nature provided it. The world before controlled fire was harsher, colder, and far less forgiving than the one we know today. And yet our ancestors survived there for hundreds of thousands of years. That fact reveals something remarkable about early humans. Before they mastered fire, they had already mastered adaptation. They learned how to work together, how to use the landscape to their advantage, and how to survive with tools far simpler than the ones we take for granted. The story of life before fire is not really a story about what humans lacked. It is a story about how resourceful humans became when one of the most important technologies in history had not yet been discovered. To understand just how extraordinary that achievement was, we first need to see how difficult life became once the sun disappeared and the temperature began to fall. Because before humans controlled fire, every night presented a challenge that modern people rarely have to face. Life before controlled fire was far more difficult than most modern people realize. Today, if the temperature drops, we turn on a heater, put on extra clothing, or simply move indoors. Ancient humans living before fire had none of those options available to them. When the sun disappeared, warmth often disappeared with it. Temperatures could fall dramatically after sunset, especially in open grasslands, mountains, and dry environments. A comfortable afternoon could become an uncomfortably cold night within just a few hours. Without fire, there was no reliable way to generate heat whenever it was needed. The only warmth available came from the sun, natural shelters, animal skins, and the presence of other people. Darkness created another challenge. Modern people rarely experience true darkness because artificial light is almost everywhere. For our ancestors, however, night often arrived as a nearly complete loss of visibility. Once the sun set, many daily activities became difficult or impossible. Travel became riskier because paths and landmarks were harder to see. Finding food became more difficult because visibility dropped dramatically. Even simple tasks required greater caution when most of the surrounding world had disappeared into shadows. The lack of fire also affected food in ways that are easy to overlook. Cooked food is softer, easier to digest, and often provides more usable energy than raw food. Before humans learned to cook, every meal had to be chewed, digested, and processed exactly as it was found. Raw roots were tougher. Raw meat was harder to eat. Many foods required far more effort to consume than they do today. Researchers such as Richard Wrangham have argued that cooking eventually transformed the human body by increasing the amount of energy available from food. Before that transformation occurred, ancient humans had to survive using a far less efficient food system. The challenges did not stop there. Fire helps deter many dangerous animals by creating light, noise, and an unfamiliar barrier that predators often prefer to avoid. Without fire, humans could not rely on flames to create a protective zone around their camps. Nighttime therefore carried greater uncertainty because people had fewer ways to discourage unwanted visitors. When darkness arrived, the world became colder, harder to navigate, more difficult to understand, and potentially more dangerous. Yet despite all these disadvantages, early humans did not disappear. They adapted. Instead of relying on technology, they relied on something that would become one of the defining strengths of our species. They relied on each other. The greatest advantage ancient humans possessed before fire was not strength, speed, or sharp teeth. It was cooperation. Alone, an early human was vulnerable to cold temperatures, predators, and countless dangers found in the natural world. Together, those same humans became far more capable of surviving difficult conditions. This principle may seem obvious today, but before fire, it was absolutely essential. Without flames to provide protection at night, Safety often depended on staying close to other people. Groups could watch for danger more effectively than individuals. If one person noticed a threat, everyone benefited from that warning. If a predator approached, several people could respond together, rather than leaving one individual to face the danger alone. Many researchers believe this safety in numbers strategy played a major role throughout human evolution. Predators generally prefer easy targets. A single isolated human represented an easier opportunity than a coordinated group of alert adults. Simply remaining together may have reduced the likelihood of attack. Cooperation also helped solve problems that no individual could manage efficiently alone. Finding food required shared effort. Protecting children required shared responsibility. Navigating unfamiliar territory required shared knowledge. Every member of the group contributed something valuable to the survival of the community. This created a powerful social system in which success depended heavily on relationships with others. Children learned by observing older individuals. Experienced adults shared knowledge about food, water, animals, and shelter. Important information passed from one generation to the next through observation and communication. In many ways, human communities functioned as living survival networks. One person might know where water could be found. At some point in the distant past, everything changed. Humans had encountered natural fires before. Lightning strikes ignited dry grasslands. Volcanic activity produced flames and heat. Wildfires swept across forests and open landscapes. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors probably observed these events from a distance. The challenge was not discovering fire. The challenge was learning how to keep it. A wildfire might burn for days before disappearing. A lightning strike might create flames that lasted only a short time. If humans wanted to benefit from fire consistently, they needed a way to preserve it after nature created it. Many researchers believe the earliest stages of fire control involved maintaining naturally occurring flames rather than creating new ones. Imagine finding a tree still smoldering after a lightning storm. Instead of allowing the fire to die, people could transport burning branches or glowing embers back to a shelter. The fire then had to be protected, fed, and carefully maintained. Keeping a flame alive may have become one of the most important responsibilities within a community. Losing the fire could mean losing warmth, light, protection, and access to cooked food. Maintaining it provided enormous advantages. For the first time, humans could create safe zones after sunset. The darkness no longer arrived with the same level of power it once possessed. Fire extended the useful hours of the day and allowed people to remain active long after the sun disappeared. Food changed dramatically as well. Cooking made many foods softer, safer, and easier to digest. The same meal could now provide more usable energy than before. This seemingly simple change may have influenced everything from physical development to social organization. Fire also transformed the way humans interacted with one another. Instead of retreating into darkness shortly after sunset, people could gather around a common source of light and warmth. Stories could be shared. Knowledge could be passed between generations. Social bonds could be strengthened during hours that were previously difficult to use productively. Many anthropologists believe campfires became important centers of communication and learning. In a sense, fire created a new kind of social space. The effects reached far beyond comfort and convenience. Humans could expand into colder regions that were previously difficult to inhabit. Survival became possible in environments that would have been far more dangerous without reliable heat. Over time, the control of fire helped transform humans from a species adapting to nature into a species increasingly capable of reshaping it. Yet perhaps the most remarkable part of the story is what came before. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans survived without controlling fire at all. They relied on cooperation, shelter, knowledge, observation, and adaptability to overcome challenges that would seem overwhelming today. Fire did not create those abilities. It amplified them. The same resourcefulness that helped humans survive without fire eventually allowed them to master it. And once that happened, the course of human history changed forever. Fire may be one of humanity's greatest discoveries, but the real story is that our ancestors survived long enough to make that discovery possible.